Thandokazi Ndaba. I think I just want to start by congratulating you. We've been congratulating you. Sonia, hi, Nombai.
Wow.
Sorry, guys, Nombai has been traveling, so I didn't know she was going to be here.
She's actually the first person to buy a ticket.
Look at that.
Yes.
Yeah, congratulations, friend.
Thank you so much.
There's a status, there's a post that Usonia put up. We are launching book number 4, but it's actually book number 5, because we know the thesis is a book that we've not spoken about.
Wow.
So congratulations on book number 5.
Thank you so much.
Just maybe as a start, can you just speak to us about what inspired you to write this book?
Wow. What inspired me to write this book is a sermon I preached in 2021. We're still just coming out of COVID times, and it was titled Mission Accomplished. And it was mainly based on the scripture in Luke 19, verse 13, which we see on there. And from there, I started thinking about reworking my second book, which is Pushed by Passion. It is a book about the power of passion in pursuit of purpose. So the idea was never really to write a new book. It was to just rework that book so that I can incorporate what God had revealed to me when I was preparing for that sermon. But as I continued to write it, it kind of became a completely different book altogether. And I could not keep the title. I had to just make it a whole new book altogether.
When did you know the title? When did you know it's Occupy?
It was last year. Yes, it was last year, and we lived in Porch, and my wife could attest to this. Yeah, just before that time where we were doing this painting thing with my wife, we're just having fun, and I was in prayer because I felt that I'm so confused, Lord, about this book, because all I thought I was doing was to rework my second book, but it is completely different such that I can't even keep the title. So I'm like, God, what should I call it? And the Lord just dropped in my spirit that verse that was at the heart of the sermon that I preached. And then I was like, this is it. At first, it was going to be just Occupy, but it felt naked and empty, and I had to sort of put in the meat so that at least people get an idea when they look at the title of the book in terms of what it's about.
Love it. So I've known Mthobisi for 8-9 years.
Wow.
And the first time we spoke, and that's not where I'm going.
Let's forgive each other. Let's forgive each other.
We have forgiven each other. So Mthobisi and I used to see Mthobisi at church. We went to Hillbrow Assemblies of God. Shout out to Tobelani and the gang.
Yeah.
So I would see him because Mthobisi, right, he's just in the front, he's always preaching, he's leading the youth, he's there. And at the time, I'm right at the back, sipping coffee at church.
Wow.
And Uvuvu would be so mad. But you're too relaxed at church. We're praying when you are just sipping your coffee. So Umto, I see him at church. I know him, and we were both working at Verts. You were working while studying. And we went to a symposium on curriculum design, and you were quite chatty. And that's when I started seeing him, like, hey, I know you, you don't know me. We go to the same church. And then we bumped into each other again at main campus. And we got into a really, really nice conversation about gender and patriarchy and the church. So that's the conversation.
Very nice conversation.
A very nice conversation. And from that day, I knew this one is going to be my friend. Because Mthobisi will challenge you, will ask why you think the way that you think. And naturally, when you are an emerging feminist scholar, it's very easy to be defensive, right? So we used to our ideas would clash, which I think helped our relationship a lot. In that I always find myself growing around you, and I see you having the same impact in your friends. You are working as a lecturer.
Yeah.
You are a teacher.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share that. But what I want to ask you is, I wonder if you can reflect on, actually, so so when I was reading this book, I got the book on Sunday, and I read it Monday morning. I think the first 35 pages, and then I was like, no, it's coming for me. And I felt like I found it to be very vulnerable here.
Yeah.
I can literally picture the 12-year-old, the 14-year-old that's deciding what career choice, the 17-year-old that's finishing matric and bagging those distinctions, the 18-year-old that goes to vets and does electrical engineering, and then halfway through is like, actually, no. What was the shift? Was there a shift? Because I read that there was a shift between, like, I found you to be quite open, more vulnerable than you ever were in the other books.
Okay, of course, thank you very much for that question. I think the shift was in my second book, in my third book. Which one? The Jumpstart Effect. There's so many of them, I've lost count.
Okay.
I'm joking. It's a joke. It's a joke. I think when I wrote the Jumpstart Effect, I really sort of figured out my voice as an author and got very comfortable in my skin, in the fact that I am a Christian, a black man from rural KZN who is an academic and has had all of these kinds of opportunities that have exposed me to what the world has to offer. And so many things contribute to the way that I think. My training in social work and psychology, and that is reflected in the way I write. My training in sociology is also reflected in the way that I write. Even in terms of my background in education and the work that I do. At the same time, I also wanted people to experience what I experienced, because the root of where this book comes from is an experience in first year of varsity when I decided to change from electrical engineering to social work, which was based on me realizing that this is not what I am passionate about. It doesn't speak to the core of who I am. It doesn't even give me the sense of fulfillment that comes with doing something that's purposeful. So, and I wanted to be able to show people that and be vulnerable in that way, because I believe then people are going to be able to relate to it as not just a conceptual thing that is written by an academic who has done research, but how does it really translate to, an actual human being's experience?
I found that to be refreshing. I think this is a book that a 30-year-old enjoys, a 20-year-old, and I think an 18-year-old would be able to pick this up and enjoy it. Was there a point where you felt this is too personal? Were there parts where you thought, I'm revealing too much?
Not really on this one, because as I said, I had gotten very comfortable with how I write. There are things I wrote about my wife. I had to check with her if I can. I can include that in the book. But I didn't get to a point where I felt I was sharing too much, because I was very comfortable in the way I wanted to write it.
I like that, and I think it probably speaks to just living, like just truly being yourself, because then you're not living like someone is gonna catch you. Someone is gonna come and contradict something that you had said. So I think that's really beautiful. I want us to now speak about the process. Is that okay?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
So just upstairs, we're speaking about just how lonely writing is, right? So there's like a couple of people in this room who are currently writing. and I write academically, which is different. I always find that with academic writing, you can easily hide. So I'm always challenging myself to be vulnerable. Like my writing, I do storytelling as a qualitative methodology, just to push myself, so that I'm always jumpy. I'm always a bit, ngiyayithanda be pressure, tension. But one of the most difficult things I've ever written is definitely the PhD.
Yeah,
And
that's me too.
And so the question I want to ask you is, are you able to reflect on just the journey, and the things that we don't speak about, like the fact that sometimes an idea comes up as a dream at 3 a.m. and you have to jump before washing your face and go and write. Sometimes I would have to pull up my phone and say something so that I don't forget it. So I want you to speak about that, but I wonder if you can also reflect for the academics, because I know there's a couple, the differences in you writing your PhD and writing this book, because this is the first book after the PhD.
Yes.
Also the first book after getting married.
Yes.
And right? And so as I was reading it, I was thinking maybe the reason why he's so open is because he's married.
Well, I can neither deny nor confirm that. But no, thank you very much for that question. As we're saying, we're talking upstairs, that I think one of the biggest mistakes that people who want to write a book make is to think of writing the way that people read the book. They want to start with the introduction, first chapter, second chapter, and that's not really how it works. I especially in my own process, I started with what I was most inspired to write. And then later you figure out how all the different pieces fall together. But that's different from academic writing, because academic writing is very methodical, is very systematic. You've got to have your statement of the problem before you write your whatever. You have to start with a literature review before you get to your result and conclusions and things like that. It's very systematic. But I have found that my academic background in writing has really strengthened the way that I write in my other style of writing. Because academia is all about argument, which is basically just trying to convince whoever is reading that what you are saying is what you are saying. And I kind of have brought the same style of writing into my personal writing outside of that. If you look carefully, you would be able to see that, each paragraph would address one idea, and I would try and make sure that I exhaust that idea and convince you with either drawing from my own personal experience, drawing from research literature in sociology. I make references on studies in sociology. I make references to the writings of people like Steve Biko, which I learned in my sociological background. But also I draw from movies that I have watched, because I know not all of us, or the people that I'm hoping would read my book, are going to be able to relate with the academic stuff. But all of us know the movie Overcomer that was written and filmed by the Kendrick brothers. And I can refer to that. Even in my previous books, I've done that to be able to demonstrate how this actually comes to life. I tell people's stories. I tell my wife's story. I tell my own personal story. I draw from the conversations I've had with other people. I cite my pastors and things like that, because that is what academia has taught me. Right. And I reference my sources.
You honor them by referencing them.
So that's basically how I've married the two together. But as also I was saying, maybe just to go back to the process, and then I will stop. One of the things that has really helped me to be able to write, and it has been consistent across all the books that I've written, is that I always test my content. Okay. So I don't hide what I'm writing about and then surprise people with a book. Okay. If you look at my social media, some of the stuff that I am writing about here, you can see them in their infancy in those kinds of work that I've done on social media. The sermons that I've had an opportunity to preach have hints of all of this. The conversations I've had with Thandokazi, JB, and some of the times they would not agree with me, and that would poke holes in my ideas, and I would go back and strengthen those kinds of places. And that enables me to then come out with such a coherent and, well-written book.
And you have. So you speak about, like in speaking of your process, I'm just thinking about like a writer's diet, right? So when I was writing up the PhD, I had to stop watching new stuff because I couldn't strain myself. Like, I don't know how to explain this, and it's still something I'm still, still struggling with a little. Not struggling, like I'm still working through it. So I couldn't watch a new movie. I needed to know how it will end, because that's like a defense mechanism for me.
Yeah.
Did you have to take, so, and for me that was a diet, right? That if I go out this weekend, I don't go out that other weekend. I write during this time and that time, and there's a period where I have to cook on Sundays to eat the whole week, and I have to call on friends to cook for me, those kind of things. Are there some tips that you would like to share on like the intimate stuff in the writing process?
Sure. I think for me, in the early stages of it, there wasn't really a specific thing, but there was a time when I stayed in Port last year. For the most part of it, I would wake up at 3 a.m., pray, 4 a.m. I start writing. I lived 7 minutes away from work, so I could start preparing for work by 7 o'clock, and then I'm going to be at work by 8. So all of that time, I'm either reading or writing. But also my reading was very specific. I wasn't reading stuff that's not related to what I'm trying to write, because it becomes a lot. I think it's only now that I can go back to reading just for fun. But that's how it works. So at first, it was just like ideas that are coming together, and some of the things that I was drawing from the original book that I thought I was reworking, and then praying before in the morning, and then writing. Okay. And sometimes I would have conversations with my wife trying to explain in the evening. I would try to explain what I'm thinking to her. And sometimes it would not make sense, but she would just be there listening and nodding, and then I would see okay, it's not landing very well. And then I would go back and rework. So I think it's different things for different people. One needs to figure out what works for you.
I like that. Okay. What do you hope people to get from this book? What do you hope it does?
I hope it sparks a movement of young people especially, and I know there are also old people that will read the book, but my heart is particularly for young people who are fully sold out for Christ, who are fully sold out to pursuing the purpose of God and not living life just like everybody else does, because I think there's so much that God has put in us that gets unused when we are not intentionally doing the work that Jesus wants us to do.
Or even asking God to reveal that
Exactly.
which He wants us to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.